So thank you everyone for joining this session. This is session 2, Careers in Arbitration. I must say I am very privileged to see this amazing panel. I will introduce the moderator. Your moderator is Mercy Okiro, who hails from Kenya and is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, who is also trained as an arbitrator, as a construction adjudicator, and she is also an accredited mediator. She is a member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators UK, and she is part of, I believe, the CIAB UK Young Members Group Steering Committee. So without much of ado, I now call upon Mercy. Please introduce your panel and take us through your session.
Okay. Thank you so much, Wairimu. I apologize that the panel has started late. I have to take blame. I'm the one who had a few issues with technology, but I'm happy to moderate this panel. Today we have 4 speakers, and the 4 speakers I will introduce shortly. We'll have advice for young and aspiring practitioners. First of all, we'll look at perspective from an African arbitral institution, then an international institution, followed by a young practitioner's perspective, and then from a pioneer arbitrator. I'll introduce Mr. Lawrence Ngugi. First of all, he's the Chief Executive Chief Executive Officer of the Nairobi Center for International Arbitration. He's an accredited arbitrator and mediator, previously having served as the Chief State Counsel at the State Law in Kenya. He's a member of Kenya's representative to the Ancestral Working Group 2, Arbitration and Conciliation, and the Working Group 3 on Online Dispute Resolution. He's also handled high-profile complex litigation and arbitration in investor-state disputes, and has a lot of experience with ICC, Ancestral, and EXID rules. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Economics with honors and a Bachelor of Laws. He's also a research fellow of East China University of Politics and Law, an advocate of the Court of Kenya, and a certified public secretary. Then I will introduce Leah. She's a legal counsel at Welcome, Mr. Ngugi.
Thank you for the kind introduction.
Okay, I'll introduce Leah Njoroge, who's the legal counsel at the EXID in Washington, D.C., which she joined last year in March 2019. Previously, she was a senior associate at J. Miles & Company Advocates in Nairobi, which anyone who knows the firm is the only firm in Kenya that specializes in arbitration. Before that, she'd worked at the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, that's UNCTAD. She's also acted as counsel and secretary in tribunals, both internationally and domestically. She's qualified to practice law in Kenya, and holds a master's degree in international law and economics from the World Trade Institute in Switzerland. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to see you.
Nice to see you too. The third person is someone that I see all the time. Her name is Folake Sadiq. She oversees the legal department and corporate secretariat of Lagos Bus Companies. She's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators and a commercial lawyer, and generally a dispute practitioner with several years of experience. She holds an LLB from the University of Lagos and a Master's of Law in International Commercial Law from the Robert Gordon University in Scotland, where she graduated with a distinction and received several prizes for her academic distinction. She's the current chairperson of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators Young Members Group Nigeria, and also sits in the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators Global Steering Committee Young Members Group. She also sits in the council member as an executive committee member of the Nigeria Chartered Institute of Arbitrators branch. And she's won several awards. In last year, she won the Nigerian Legal Awards 40 Under 40 Rising Star. Her CV is long, so I'm cutting them short. All of them I can't read, otherwise we'll not do the panel. Last but not least, welcome, Folake.
Thank you. It's nice to see you.
Last but not least is Professor Dr. Mohammed. And I will introduce him. Now he is a book. I will just say this. I don't want to read the whole book. I'll just say he's the chair of the private international law and professor of international arbitration at Cairo University, the vice president of the ICC International Court of Arbitration. He's also the founding partner and head of international arbitration, construction, and energy groups of Zulfikar and Partners Law Firm in Cairo. He's also in so many IBA regional forums and etc. And as he told me, he prefers to be introduced as a supporter of young and upcoming arbitrators and lawyers. So that is where we'll stop. We also want to look at the detailed bios for the speakers. They are in the lobby or even in this section of the speakers, so that you can read the books and the pieces. There are many. I'll go straight into our panel now. I'll start with Mr. Ngugi. Now, being the CEO of an arbitral institution in Africa and just thinking around issues of, you understand also other arbitral institutions work, and based on your experience, what would you say are the skills that you look at when hiring and when looking to engage young practitioners, either as staff in case management, or even if you're looking at perhaps involving them as neutrals on your panels?
Thank you, Mercy. I must say a big thank you to the organizers of the conference, one for inviting me to speak today, but also for thinking about the young and upcoming aspiring practitioners. We, as a center based on the continent in Africa, couldn't underscore the role and the value of having a session such as we have. Why? Because of traditional reasons, Africa has only recently emerged as a force and a real participant in international arbitration, and especially in this sphere of institutions for international arbitration. So that being the case, your question, what kind of skills do we look for when we are seeking to recruit someone, for instance, in the case management department? I would say this would not be any different from what a center elsewhere would be looking for. But however, of course, we would first be looking for the background of this candidate. By background, I mean exposure, for instance, in the area of arbitration itself. For our case, we would extend this both to the domestic and international sphere, because we serve both the domestic and international arena of arbitration. We would also look at multiple skills. So for instance, questions about multiple languages, candidates who have not just fluency in one language, but the advantage of having several other languages to their pack. As you'll understand, international arbitration sometimes can be conducted in different languages. So we are in an English-speaking jurisdiction, but cases that would come to the center could come from as far away as Prof would be in an Arabic jurisdiction, an Arabic-based contract, and so multiple languages would be one of the skills that we would be looking for. Of course, the background in terms of training, the academics, preferably one was engaged in the area of law, and in specific, one was touched on international trade law, international investment law, international finance and investment law. And also recently, there is a growing number of people who have also had the privilege to interact with international arbitration at an academic level. So those are some of the kind of skills that we have looked for. In fact, the team that I now have one or the other of these skills. The other one is really a soft skill, the willingness to learn, the willingness to be exposed to this, what is rather a new field here in a sense. And so the soft skill, we may not have acquired it from training. However, we are looking for someone who is willing to learn, willing to grow, willing to gain exposure, and not just in the domestic sphere, but of course also regionally and internationally. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, I think for that part, you've answered more than satisfactorily. So, sorry. Excuse me. Today, I think someone has jinxed me. My apologies. Collectively, in terms of the future, in terms of what arbitral institutions can do, how do you think young practitioners should enrich their skill set, or what do you think should be developed even by the institutions themselves so that young lawyers can take maybe young and aspiring practitioners can take a better role in ADR? Yeah.
Okay. If I think from the perspective of an arbitral institution, I have 3 Fs, and I would deal with them in this way. One, we look at the practice of arbitration, whether domestic or international, as an ecosystem. And these centers happen to be the focal point. So the first F, they are the focal point, where all the forces that influence the practice of arbitration converge. So if you think of it as a triangle, with arbitrators on one end, arbitral institutions on the other tip of the triangle, and then the disputants, or those who are consuming the service on the other end, forming an ecosystem. One tip of the triangle being the focal point, I would regard the arbitral institutions as that point where all these other forces would meet. The second one would be viewing them as a factory, a place, processes, and procedures. So think about rules, think about administration of cases, think about linking the arbitrators with the disputants and the case management team, and where basically the engine, the vehicle of driving the entire process, so the factory. And then the third F would be the future. So that whereas before in the continent we have had more of ad hoc based arbitrations, we have seen an exponential growth in the uptake of administered arbitral institution-based arbitration. So if you think of those 3 Fs, the focal point, the factory, and the future of arbitration, as an arbitral institution, my view in terms of a young practitioner seeking to enter the practice is that these institutions provide access. They provide that focal point for the young practitioner to meet up with the other forces that influence international arbitration, the arbitrators, of course, the council with the disputants on one end. And how can we, or how do we foster the involvement of the young practitioner in that ecosystem? We, for instance, I'll take Nairobi for instance. We have had for the last 2 years now a moot competition, which has brought together about 24 universities in the region, targeting law schools. At the end of each competition, the team that is awarded the ultimate prize would either be linked up to law firms who are in the practice. Some of them have actually been sponsored to attend summer courses in universities outside of the continent. So by hosting this sort of moot competitions, we have opened access to 24 universities in the region, not just in Kenya, but the entire East Africa region, to be able to meet up with these other forces that influence international arbitration. I have also spoken about case management teams. If you look across the centers, and there is a testament here, most of the case management teams are really graduates, younger practitioners who are entering the sphere either from law firms or directly from universities, and that's the access we have provided. I have a lady from Miami, having studied international arbitration at a master's level, a gentleman from the University of Nairobi who also had an interest in international arbitration. And so we have provided a nurturing ground for young talent to gain access, whereas before they could not have had. And once they're in, they enter into the factory. They participate in the processes and the procedures. They literally see the rules take effect right from the word registration all the way to the point of award. So we are giving them visibility. We are giving them a space to participate in the actual arbitrations. to sit in the roles of case secretary. And so if you ask how can they benefit from arbitral institutions in first gaining access and then growing in their skills, that's a way in which one way in which we are promoting the young practitioner.
I'll leave. Thank you so much, Mr. Ngugi. I'll leave the rest for the Q&A because I want us to have as much discussion as we can, including being able to take the attendees' questions. Thank you so much for that insight. I'll quickly move on to Leah Njoroge. From having now being our international institution representative, I was so happy when you got that job in EXID because we used to hang out with you here. And as such, I'd like to know on my own behalf, what are some of the peculiar skills required by arbitration practitioners working at an international arbitration institution? And those of us who aspire, what would you advise us based on your experience there? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mercy. Yes, Mercy is right. We did have a few good times in Nairobi together. And so I'm well acquainted with her. First of all, I just want to thank the organizers. I want to thank Wairimo, Agnes, Leyu. We've known each other and worked together in the past conferences. And congratulations once again for pioneering. This is a new type of EAIC. It's now on the web. So good luck for the rest of the conference. And okay, so to start us off, I'm just going to give us a quick snapshot of what EXID is. Some of our participants may not be aware, so I thought it's best to just start from there and lay off the foundation. So I will briefly introduce what EXID is, its mandate, and tell you a bit about a day in the life of an EXID counsel, and tell you of any particular skill set that are needed for the job, so you can be prepared. So what is EXID? EXID is the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. So it's one of the 5 intergovernmental organizations that make up the World Bank. The mandate of EXID is to provide an impartial and effective international forum for the resolution of disputes between host governments and foreign investors. It was established in 1966 by the EXID Convention, and it has currently we have 155 members. We're so proud that quite recently in June 2020 we welcomed Djibouti as our latest member. So we're so proud that it's an African country. Particularly myself, I'm proud that it's an African country. And from a general organizational perspective, EXID consists of 2 parts. So we have an administrative council and a secretariat. So the administrative council plays a more of a governance role, and it's chaired by the president of the World Bank. Currently, that's Mr. David Malpass. And with the other side of EXID is the secretariat. So that's us, legal counsel. So the secretariat carries out the day-to-day work of EXID, and we are organized into teams. Just like Lawrence had mentioned before, we have case management teams, and most of them are organized in language groups. So, but that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes cases mishmash, and so we are organized also. We also have a team that deals with the admin and finance side of things, and we generally what EXID does is to administer cases, arbitration cases and conciliation cases under the EXID Convention and the additional facility rules. So that's what we do basically. And most people don't actually know this, but EXID also administers investor state proceedings under other sets of rules such as ancitral, and we also act as an appointing authority under various arbitral rules and international treaties. So that aside from that, we also have like an institutional team that is very active in publications. So we have a very special issue that we just released, which is the EXID review, and it has a special issue. It's a special issue focusing on Africa. It is the first time that EXID has done a whole review, a whole journal exclusively authored by African authors and academicians, and it's now available for free. It's still available for free, and the link can be found on the EXID website. Just on the loading page, on the home page, you'll find a link that takes you directly to download that EXID review. So we have very many of our famous international law experts from Africa doing that special issue. Some names I can remember right now are Professor Makan Bengu. We also have Professor Warren Kidan, Professor James Gadi doing a special issue. Having written special journals just for that. And so I'd encourage everyone who's attending to just check out that page. So my next part of this question is a day in a life of EXID Counsel. So how does my day look like? We have various functions that we perform on a day-to-day basis, and they may not happen all day, every day, but the first and foremost, we receive and analyze requests for conciliation, arbitration and applications for post-award remedies. This is the annulment and revision. So we receive the request, and EXID and the Secretary General is mandated under the convention and the rules to have a screening role. So we receive the requests, we go through it and make sure that it meets the Article 25, at the limits of Article 25 of the EXID Convention. So the next thing that we do is we assist in the constitution of conciliation commissions, tribunals, and ad hoc committees. So there are various ways in which we assist parties to do that. Some of us have heard of the ballot procedures that we participate in, and we use this as a tool to encourage diversity in arbitral appointments. And I'll point you out to EXID just released its caseload statistics up to financial year June 30th, June 30th, 2020. So from last year, 2019, July, until this year, June 30th, 2020, we have actually we have appointed more diverse panels, than the parties themselves. So that's one thing. The other thing that we do is to administer proceedings. So that includes organizing sessions of the tribunal. We also organize many things to do with the financial aspects of a case. So if there are calls of funds to be made, that's one of our primary responsibility. Another thing that we do is we provide advice on procedure to arbitrators, conciliation commissions, and committee members. The other thing that we do is we assist in the preparation of procedural orders and summaries for decisions made by tribunal. So this is something that I do personally on almost a day-to-day basis, assisting in preparation of orders, decisions. There are many. So in my caseload, I would have maybe a given number of cases, and with that, I regularly communicate with the tribunal to see what's coming up in the procedural timetable, preparing in advance for them. So that's part of my primary role. Another thing is that we participate institutionally on specific projects. At the moment, some of you are aware that we are undertaking an overhaul of our rules. So we've been engaged in fact, since I joined, I have been participating in the rule amendments project in which we're trying to modify our rules so that they can be more adaptable and more flexible. And so that has been an ongoing process. I think it started nearly 3 years ago, and we're still on it. So it's something that we do aside from our casework. Something else that we do is we do research and do assistance on technical projects. So we have our EXID 101. I know my first time to encounter EXID was at an EXID 101 in Nairobi. So that's one of the things that EXID Council do. So are there any particular skills required for the job? I think that...
I'll
Yes.
give you, let me ask you the second question since you've gone into the details of EXID. Let me ask you the
Yes.
second question so that you can just answer them together. So,
Yes.
apart from the peculiar skills required by the young practitioners, and maybe you could tie that in with the practical steps you think that we young practitioners on this career day can
Yeah.
make in positioning ourselves for a career in international arbitration institutions. So that after that, we can take the rest of the interventions at the Q&A. Thank you.
Okay. So, uh, for our young practitioners, I wanted to answer this question by looking at what I have the 3 E's of preparation that have worked for me and others I know in the field. So the first point or the first E is exposure. So just like Mr. Moiruri mentioned, that having a postgraduate degree is, I think, for me, the topmost requirement because that will expose you to international arbitration. I recalling from my own experience, the first time I did encounter international arbitration, aside from the domestic realm, it was actually while pursuing my master's degree. So that's the first time I encountered investor treaty arbitration. And I think that sets you off on the right track, particularly also participating in educational programs. I know various universities participate in moot competitions. So I think just getting your foot in the door and understanding what is international arbitration through pursuing a higher educational degree will set you off on the right track. Something else is pursuing opportunities to deepen your knowledge in arbitration. There are many summer courses which are offered. I know the ICA website has many resources for young arbitrators who are interested in short courses. There are many short courses which have been organized by governments, by non-profit organizations to deepen knowledge in international arbitration. Another thing is to publish. You can publish papers, articles, and essays on topics of interest in investment treaty arbitration. And I think just by doing that research or by collaborating with a key author or someone you know in the field, just like I mentioned that we have that special issue on Africa, you could contact one of them and see if you can collaborate with them on a piece, on doing a piece on Africa. The second E is experience. Working as counsel for me has actually played a major role in my current day-to-day life at EXID. Arbitration is a pretty much a um, hands-on field. So a lot of the skills that I have learned have been on the job. Um, just looking back at my experience as counsel at working at J Miles, I think that has really brought back. I use a lot of those skills right now. You can also shadow counsel. There are many. I think there are many organizations and law firms that have put out secondment programs. I know for sure some UK law firms have done that, and there's the International Lawyers for Africa that have really tried to improve the skill set that African practitioners have in the continent. And I know especially ILFA really is big on people getting the skills and then coming back and implementing them in their home countries. There are internship opportunities. So EXID offers unpaid internship opportunities to students enrolled in a graduate degree program. And we have 3 intakes throughout the year. So you can just check out our website to get more details about that. Then there is networking through young member groups. I'll share one experience that I had in 2015. I was still working as counsel at J Miles, and I was a member of the IDRC, sorry, ICDR, Young and International. And one time I saw them advertise an event, and I contacted the advertiser and the organizing committee, and I asked them, would they be interested in doing an event in Nairobi. And, I didn't think they would get back to me, but, shock on me, they did. And they asked me, can you help us? And I was like, yes, of course. And so I went on to organize my very first conference in 2015 through networking in the Young and International Arbitration Group. And from that, from that one event, I got so many contacts that I'm still in good relationships with even right now. So the third E that I wanted to talk about is excellence. And this is just a product of your own personal attributes: integrity, patience, and having a positive attitude. Not everything will go the way you want it to go, but having, that internal um, fortitude that, being patient, that good things will come to those who wait. And also, I want to stress the importance of hard work. I think I had one person who used to tell me, one mentor who always used to say, finding, minding, and grinding. You have to be willing to put in the work. I mean, things cannot just come on your lap. You must be willing to go above and beyond what is required. And another thing is having a good track record, adding value wherever you are in your career trajectory. You may not be where you want to be, but I think having the presence of mind to add value where you are, I think will set you apart. You will get a good track record, and people will always look back and say, at her time here, or person's Y times here, she was very effective and she did X, Y, and Z. Just to go back to my earlier question on the particular skill set, I don't think there are any particular skills set that are different from any area or practice of the law. But for you to work at EXID, this is what you will need. You will need advanced knowledge in arbitration practice and procedure. You will need I'd call the first set a hard skill. That is, I think, the topmost. And having good communication skills. You need to have good clarity of thoughts and presentation of ideas. There must be teamwork in your mind, that at any given point in our case management teams, we are a team. We always have people who work above us, beneath us, and besides us. So that you must be able to understand the dynamics of teamwork. Related to what I've just said is maturity, because we are working with people from across various cultures of the world, and you must be able to adapt to that culture change, or working across a multicultural environment, understanding what needs, what's behind people's behaviors. So that's something that you really need to develop. Also, prioritizing and multitasking skills. At any given time, I might be juggling, I don't know, 5 cases, and I need to be able to know which one is a priority for me to get it out through the door. And of course, there's legal drafting, research skills, and I think I just want to mention one more and then hand over to Mercy, is being willing to travel. EXID has hearings all over the world, and willingness to travel is, I think, one of the things that you can, we don't have control over how the hearings and sessions of the tribunal are scheduled, so you must be willing and flexible to travel. Thank you very much. Just one more. You in this in this era of that we're taking everything online, I think one of the greatest skills that I've learned in the last couple of months is having ingenuity, adaptability, and flexibility to learn new things. I mean, I've had to learn how to fix my own screen, how to set up my own audio connections, because we're now taking all of our hearings. Most of our hearings are happening online now. And so having that presence of mind to be adaptive, to go online and search, which is the best camera for this, this and this, advising the tribunal, I think that's something that you, as a EXID counsel, you must be very good at. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you so much, Leah. I've indulged you because we need this information. And then I will quickly move on to Dr. Mohammed, because it appears that we've lost Folake. I think she dropped off. we'll catch up with her, but I know she'll be logging back on rather. Now, Dr. Mohammed, you've mentioned so many people in Africa, and most of us, when we think about an arbitrator in Africa, all of us want to be like you. So, but your questions are surprise questions. Okay, not really, but yeah. My first question is, you've practiced domestic arbitration in Africa, and eventually now you're more or less, as you are known nowadays, you're an international arbitrator. What do you think you can advise young practitioners and upcoming, aspiring, all of us really, despite where we are in our practice? What do you think you can tell us in terms of areas one needs to consider in order to succeed internationally? And what skill sets? Advise us like our pioneer arbitrator, one of those people who are an African and you're making it in the big circles. For those who forgot, go back and read the profile after the panel, not now. Thanks so much. So that will be my first question to you.
Thank you very much, Mercy. Delighted to be here with Folake, Lawrence, and Leah. And thank you very much. Oh, I'm glad that Folake is there.
Yes.
I just want to start by praising the efforts that Reno, Agnes, and all the colleagues have done to create an exclusively African platform for a world-class event. I did mention this before we started, and I just want to emphasize this. I'm very proud. It's a moment of pride that we have an African done, created, and well-managed event virtually. Now, in response to your question, I will be very candid, Mercy. First of all, to make it internationally, now there's no doubt that many people can make it domestically. Fewer will be able to make it regionally, and much less can make it internationally. I mean, that's normal. It depends on a number of things. First of all, your stamina in terms of work and skill set. One thing that I advise my younger colleagues is patience. Sometimes I feel that people are, maybe because it's the age of technology, things are at a faster pace. The patience is important. Why is it important? Because you need to build yourself inside before you invite the outside world to see what you have to offer. And to build yourself inside, you need a composite set of soft and hard skills. The hard skills means that you need to acquire good knowledge of the law, and not your own law, or just the region, international law and comparative law. One of the things that was an edge, at least worked in my favor, your familiarity, knowledge, and interest in a number of legal systems are, better positioning you in our field. Knowledge of how to address people and having substance, not just the ability to speak and communicate in a social way, which is extremely important, but have substance, something that sets you apart, an edge on matters of law, procedure, or otherwise. So this is the hard work that combines the knowledge, the best efforts, and the dedication to what you do. If you want to be a pioneer or aspire to achieve international status, you must like the field you're in, and you must work diligently on building your skill set. My view of things, and this might come a bit as a surprise to many, international arbitration requires a special skill set. This is not just me saying this. It is a matter of fact. There are many other areas of law that may require their own skill set, but international arbitration does require its own skill set. Amongst the things that you need to acquire when you do counsel work, which is your ticket, it's a fast-track ticket to becoming known. You're not going to just be born as an arbitrator out of thin air. You need to do heavyweight lifting of counsel work or other work within institutions or otherwise, but you need to be familiar and acquire a degree of expertise in the field. And to do this, you need to be good in distilling issues, understanding what the case is about, having a good business sense, understanding of the underlying legal rules that are applicable, and the ability to plead your case orally as well. I know it's a rare treat to have a combination of a prolific writer and an outstanding speaker. But if you combine both, the world is yours. You can work on this. I mean, there are people who are naturally born as talented in having a charisma or speaking or whatever. That's possible, but you can acquire it as well by training, by experience, by learning from others, by monitoring and seeing what's happening, by equipping yourself in reading into the field that you aspire to pioneer in. That said, I must say that you all, or at least Africans, have a golden opportunity because the world is focused with its attention on Africa. So you have more visibility compared to us, and compared even to the elder generation. But in all fairness, your competition is much more fierce than the earlier generation as well. There is so much of a supply and there is a demand, but there is a visibility. And the visibility, I think, much attention is given to people of substance that are able to build their hard and soft skill set to contribute to the field. That said, once you've done that and you have something to offer, authoring an article properly based on experience or expertise, which does not necessarily, by the way, require age, contrary to what people might tell you. You may have expertise based if you've done good work within a limited period of time, and then publish something, speak on something of substance. People will begin to notice you and will encourage you. Today, as I mentioned, the world opens its door. Look at ICA, for example. It has opened some years ago since Albert Jan Vandenberg and before and after, and now we've had a lot of presidents in ICA who are supporting the younger generation. Gabrielle Kaufman-Kohler, Judith Gill, of course, and then Lucy Reed now. So you've got so many people encouraging young members to take the lead, and many institutions are doing the same. The ICC, LCIA, the Nairobi Center, the Cairo Center, the Lagos Court of Arbitration. There are the LCIA. There are so many institutions. The SIAC. I don't want to forget. And EXID, of course, is doing a huge, service to the community. Because, and I'm not saying that just to please certain people, but it's a fact. EXID in the past few years, when Meg became Secretary General, has supported a lot of Africans and people from developing countries to make it. And this will remain in history. And these people are deserving. It's on substance. One thing that we need to be clear about, of course, if you are an African or an Asian or Latin American, it is not as easy as if you are practicing in Europe or in the US. But if you make it, you will command the respect, the admirability of people, and you will be valued, and you will realize that you have achieved something that you will cherish, and you should definitely maintain the ethics, integrity, and knowledge to keep on the top of the game. So never stop learning. That's another thing. Because what I notice sometimes, people, when they're young, they learn few things and they think that they own the world. I think we need to realize that we all learn until we die, and there is no one who can claim to be at the pinnacle of knowledge that he does not need or she does not need to go further.
Okay, Dr. Mohammed, just a quick follow-up, 30 seconds, 1 minute at most. Can you quickly outline to those people who've been curious as to how your arbitration journey has been? Did you start as counsel, and how did you get into tribunals and all that? Just a quick, I'd say.
In a minute, huh? Well,
yes.
Briefly, let me tell you the following. Thank you, Mercy, for this. I was doing my PhD in England, and I was sitting there. How can you penetrate the international circles of arbitration, especially that I've had my comparative experience with different legal systems? And I said my edge would be technology. That was back in 2000. 2000, technology to many was a luxury. The gurus and the icons of the world of international arbitration, technology was not fascinating for them. Things were not of interest. So I started working on technology and online dispute resolution. And over the years, became an authority in the field and got my appointments first to start with technology-related disputes. and then you became a world-leading authority on online dispute resolution. The challenge was, how can you make the transition from a role that you have been successful in to another role that people can see you, that you could be even more successful in? That was the difficult part. It's like, imagine an actor who has done a comedy or a drama or an action well, that directors want him to continue to do that role. But you can have skills to do other roles. So I started as well focusing on construction, oil and gas, and done a lot of council work there at the international level. Of course, it required a lot of hard work, sleepless nights, round-the-clock availability. So you amassed then the expertise and experience therein, and you proved yourself. And then people started seeing that you are not just a domestic or a regional, but an international arbitrator, that you can sit in cases governed by English law, by Swedish law, by Italian or Spanish, and it's just not me, just many other people as well. And I think we do on the continent have the talent amongst the younger generation to achieve even much more. So I wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed. As always, you always support all our events. I always invite you to panels and call you at night, frantically, while I'm lost in work, so that you can advise me.
Anytime.
On behalf of everyone else, we thank you. Quickly, for Folake, I hope your internet sticks. I've been given very little time, so I'd ask the panelists to go to the Q&A section. If there's any question addressed to you that you might answer by typing, kindly just answer it so that we don't use too much time on the Q&A because it's really limited. For Folake, I'll start by, what are your comments on mentorship? Because you've been the chairperson of YMG, I've been the chairperson of YMG, we've done all this YMG leadership business, and everyone is always talking about you need mentorship, you need to get mentorship. What are your comments on mentorship? As you also discuss other ways maybe people can get mentorship, just comment. I don't want to lead you so much so that it looks like we were discussing this in the morning. Yeah, kindly just comment on the role of mentorship as a young arbitrator or aspiring practitioner in the field. Kindly unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Sorry. I'm here now. I had 3 different sources of internet, so any of this wouldn't happen, but it's still apologies. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Okay, so I see that, mentorship is one of those things that, is the kind of thing everyone is talking about right now. I have been a young practitioner literally since the beginning of young arbitration practitioner, since the beginning of my practice as a lawyer. I think the first event I see trends. I tend to interact with a lot of young people, and what I see is that over a couple of years, there are different trends that happen. In terms of young people thinking there's one particular thing you need to do. First was that you must join a particular group, you must travel. Now the new hot thing is mentorship. Almost every request we get with YMG Nigeria is about mentorship. I don't have any problem with mentorship. It's a great way to learn from people that are experienced. But I would also say that we need to stop focusing. We shouldn't focus on mentorship as the only way to gain experience. Because what you find is that when you see, there are other ways, such as associating with your peers. Now, it might seem like, oh, your peers don't know as much as these mentors, but what I have found and what has helped me a lot is that a lot of your peers, they know what you're going through. They know you all are struggling together to get to a certain destination. So it is very helpful to connect with support group. It's good to have a group of young practitioners where you are in the same kind of space mentally and in your profession, and you can grow together. And I'll give you an example. I don't have one particular mentor. People like Professor Abdul Wahab mentor me from afar, because whenever people like Dr. Oyema mentor me from afar, because you learn from them. You don't have to know one person as your mentor or hold one person as your mentor. Before, recently, I had to sit as arbitrator, and I had an issue. I was sole arbitrator. I had an issue, and I knew absolutely, in my mind, I had prepared for it. But around 12 midnight, I started getting worried. I started getting panicky that, okay, if this issue comes up, what am I going to do? Now, I couldn't reach out to any mentor at that point, at that time of the night. But I know my friends that are nocturnal. And I just sent a message to someone, oh, I have this issue. Can we talk about it? I called that friend. We talked about it at almost midnight. And it put my first rest. I was able to understand that, my issue that big problem and my plan for it indeed were very useful and would work. So mentorship is good. And the other thing I would say is I have like a 3-point agenda for young people. The first thing is to equip yourself. I feel like there's a lot of focus on all these other things that you must do. You must travel for conferences or hard work in any way, shape, or form. All these other things might get you to the door. Mentorship, going for conferences, even what it is that you think you have to do. But equipping yourself, knowing what arbitration is about, knowing what is going on, knowing the rules, there is no excuse. There's no alternative for that. After you've equipped yourself, I think it's very important that you know yourself. Now, it's possible that, fine, there are different things you can do to get ahead in arbitration, but people, it is speaking at conferences. For certain people, it is writing articles. Some people are lucky and they can do all and they excel at it. No, but you need to know yourself, have a group of people that help you. They could be your colleagues, they could be your mentors. I would prefer sometimes your colleague, to help you identify where your strengths lie, encourage you, criticize you when you need to be criticized, and then grow in that manner. And then the last thing is, I would say, is for you to know your jurisdiction. Now, what will Mercy, you and I are young female arbitrators, Leah. If we sit down together, some of our stories will be the same. But it is not exactly the same in each jurisdiction. And certain actions need you to have studied their courses, to have taken their courses, and even up to a certain level. So you need to know what exactly works in your jurisdictions. There's some places, especially in the Western world, where all you need is for you to get into a top law firm that get your good grades and you'll be fine. That necessarily will not happen. Work in other jurisdictions. You must, in certain jurisdictions, you must even volunteer, make sure that you're visible, know what works for you, get to know what people around you that are successful are doing, and emulate them. And it's quite possible that you can do all of this and still, it doesn't work out as well, and it doesn't work out as well as you had expected, or things are not going your way. I would encourage you without being radical, to be positively disruptive. And what I mean by that, if you can't find a platform, or a group of people created a group called the African Young Arbitrators. I remember when they started, I was like, oh, another group again. Why can't we just work with what we have? But now AYA is doing so well. I mean, if the Magnificent Seven, as Prof calls them, says, oh, for come and distinguish themselves as people that have capacity. So you must always make your capacity shine through. And another thing, and I'll just, and it doesn't even have to be an internationally recognized organization like that. It could just be going back to your alma mater and creating like a, collaborating with the students there and creating like an event that hones your skills. It teaches you how to present, how to organize, and in such situations, you even become the mentor. And the last thing I would say is, we have tools as young people. One of them is social media. Now, I'm not talking about LinkedIn. LinkedIn, everybody knows what to do with that. But even the less serious ones, such as Instagram, such as Twitter. So when you write an article, I'm not saying become the boring person that is always talking about work. No. But they need to know that if I need information about arbitration, Mercy is the go-to person. Even though they don't follow you professionally, they know that you know this. I'm telling you, I have had an invitation to sit as arbitrator from a discussion that started on Instagram. I read an article recently, and the article was initially published as a Twitter feed. So we have a lot of tools. I would conclude by saying, as young arbitrators, we need to create a network that works, whether it is through mentorship or through your colleague. Create a support network, and also just know your jurisdiction, and the world is your oyster, really. It's your playfield. So I hope with these few points of mine, I've been able to pass on these few points to young arbitrators out there.
Okay, thank you so much, Folake. We have about 4 minutes, so I've done my best to try and consolidate the charts. And I will start with Dr. Mohammed. So that, Dr. Mohammed, one of the things that has come out in the chat from Dr. Emilia, so I've basically combined the questions that are pertinent to you. I want to hear your comment, and Leah, this is a question directed out of your presentation, so you'll also answer it. The issue of postgraduate requirements, because you said that they are important in terms of people who want to get into the field. And think about that as Dr. Mohammed takes this and his other questions, such that, and this is also a question that I'm asking on behalf of myself, because Dr. Emilia has raised it, and I'm sure Dr. Mohammed, you've seen it. The requirement for postgraduate degrees is one thing, but the second one now, it's not just any postgraduate degree. There's an expectation that it has to be from the Ivy League schools and such schools of a certain reputation, and even then you have to graduate summa cum laude or at the top of the class. So that if then postgraduate degrees are becoming a requirement, is there a way that my own University of Nairobi master's degree then can be allowed? Is it not also increasing the issue of separation and diversifying the already economically disadvantaged upcoming young practitioners? Think around that, the two of you. Now, in addition to that question, Dr. Mohammed, there's a question from Sekai and John Omindo. One, Sekai has acted as expert witness in arbitrations before, and it wants to know how he can act in arbitration, how he can transition into arbitration as arbitrator. And then John Omindo's question is around the same of, you've noticed there's an increased number of engineers and basically construction industry professionals taking an interest in arbitration. What has been your experience working alongside this cadre of arbitrators, and what would you advise any upcoming arbitrators in those fields? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would rather give Leah the floor first to answer, and then I will pick up the other questions. Although I can't see the questions, for some reason I'm not receiving this, and I don't even...
You have to go to the Q&A, there's a Q&A section.
It's
But
not
then
showing on my, but anyway, it's you're my ambassador for this. But Leah, please.
so I'll make up questions and pretend they were asked.
Wow, I must say this has been very, very engaging. On my comment about the postgraduate degree, I was specifically referring to the recruitment requirements of EXID Council. So in the job description or in the required skills, you will have a postgraduate degree and it will specify a higher education degree, meaning an SJD, JD, LLM, and so forth. So for myself, I do have a master's degree, but for my entire legal career, my master's degree was only, let's say, 10 months outside the country, and I quickly came back to Kenya. And so I would say that I have learned and I have done most of my legal training in Kenya. And yet I was able to be recruited by an international organization. So my undergraduate was at the University of Nairobi. I did my KSL at the Kenya School of Law for the bar. I passed the bar, and then later on went and furthered my degree. Having said that, I think that I would not have been recruited um, at EXID if I did not have my master's degree. But that is not to say that there are no other avenues in which you can increase your education if you are not unable, maybe due to financial constraints or otherwise, to go for a postgraduate degree. I understand people are young, and in fact, for me, I'm still feeling the effect of financial effect of having taken a decision to pursue a master's degree. It's still there. And I think I just took a risk for myself. I'll speak for myself and say I took a risk and it has paid off. For other people, it may not play out the same. And I think just trying your way to increase your knowledge in arbitration, that was my second point. There are many summer courses that are being carried out by various organizations, even just taking a secondment program, applying for those. Applying is free, so just try. At least the worst thing you can get is to be told no. When you're told yes, you can find a way. So that is my view concerning.
Okay, Leah, sorry, I'll have to cut you short and quickly go
I'm
to
done.
Dr. Mohammed.
I'm done.
After
Well-
Dr. Mohammed is done, sorry, Dr. Mohammed, let me just set the question for Lawrence. Lawrence, the issue that has come out is that I mentioned in your introduction that you are part of the ODR working group, sorry. So what would be your comment around what is happening there, around what young practitioners should expect, what they should prepare for, and what NCIA, based on that working group, that was a very heavy question, based on your crystal ball prediction from the ODR working group, that young lawyers from your crystal ball need to prepare when this whole working group issues a report, what will they do so that they position themselves, and even NCIA as an institution, what is your crystal ball from the working group? The other question was on, is it unfair that NCIA requires people to be fellows of the institute to apply to be on the panel of neutrals? I don't think they require, but let me let you answer that. So Dr. Mohammed will answer, then you'll answer, and then I'll close this panel in the next 3 minutes.
we started late, Mercy. But anyway, briefly so. Let me start with a reverse response to making it to arbitrator or a transition from an expert to arbitrator in the construction. And construction is a fascinating industry. And I'm quite fortunate to have been engaged in huge cases, both as counsel as arbitrator. It's one of the fields that are very close to my heart and which my areas of expertise lie. I think one of the important things is that you need to understand the industry and the business of the specific sector you wish to specialize in as an arbitrator. That is extremely important. You also have to understand counsel approaches, hence my earlier reference to being familiar one way or the other with counsel work, because then the counsel would make certain choices, strategic or otherwise, and as arbitrators you need to understand why and how these choices are made and what the parties expect in terms of the award that you are rendering. You don't render an award in a vacuum. You render it on the basis of the cases pleaded before you in a way. So I think that is extremely important. Now, showcasing your knowledge of the industry or the business can come through speaking engagements, publications, an opportunity serving as an expert on a case or counsel on a case, where people see that there is something for that person to sit as an arbitrator, to the extent you're able to show that you have good and sound judgment to take. Transitioning from an expert to an arbitrator, for our colleagues, especially those working as experts, is both difficult and easy, I must say. Difficult because people see you as a good expert, not necessarily they may see you as a good arbitrator, but if they see that you have a degree of understanding, analysis, ability to distill issues and, you know, be on top of things, there will definitely be an opportunity to make that transition and sit as an arbitrator. And certainly, one of the opportunities that you take, you take trainings, world-class trainings in sitting as an arbitrator. For example, the Chartered Institute is one example of the excellent courses they offer for fellowship and chartered arbitrators or otherwise. But that's not the only one. There are others. I mean, the ICC, the LCIA, SIAC, they do as well very useful trainings for people. Now, the question about the postgraduate, let me tell you the following briefly, but I think it's important. People or young people have to do their utmost best during university. Why am I saying that? Because there is an often misconception in a number of jurisdictions, not all, that what you study in university is not necessarily what you encounter in practice. And so people feel relaxed about it. We don't need to do much effort. And when we graduate, we will work and we will have all the time to learn. This is a misconception, and that is a wrong start for things. First of all, you need to be disciplined. You need to do the work to train yourself on getting as much knowledge as needed during university degree, because what you study in university or what you fail to study will come and haunt you during your career one way or the other. So you need to ensure that you get the best out of it. Secondly, I will be very candid to say, not necessarily the systems of education prevailing in a number of jurisdictions may produce the best candidates as the top graduates. That is true. It is a presumption, but it is a rebuttable presumption that you graduate. And I'm saying this even though I graduated, so that people don't think I have a grudge. I graduated top of my class, over more than 4,000 students with the highest marks in Egypt at the time across all universities. But even when I gave the speech of a fresh grad, a very young green lad, I said, probably I'm not the best amongst the people. It just happens that my grades are the best. But when I was studying, I was not studying to become the first. I was studying because this was going to be my career. So I was not collecting marks or grades. I was acquiring knowledge that I thought I will be using one way or the other. Now, once you graduate, there are two approaches. Either, of course, you pursue a practical career and you can be successful. That's fine. Amongst the greatest leading practitioners, they do not necessarily have a postgraduate degree. People also have a misconception that you get a doctorate degree. This will command or will give you a world-class knowledge of everything. No. Normally, people go for a PhD degree when they're going to be academics or will have an academic hat. You can do a master's, and that's fine. If you want to do a postgraduate degree as a PhD or something, I know in our jurisdictions on the continent and elsewhere, it may command a degree of respect or stature. But believe me, when they proliferate and too many people carry PhDs, the value is diluted. But in any event, I think for the young people, first of all, they need to do their utmost best during university, acquire the needed knowledge, because believe me, when you're out there on the highway working, you will not have enough time as you've had during the university degree years to make the most out of your studies. But joining an A or a world class or an Ivy League definitely is a plus, but it is not, what can I say, indispensable for you not to make it. No, you can make it still if you prove worthy of the trust that people would give you based on the knowledge you have. But it is a plus when you join a good university.
30
Done.
more seconds. Any
Thank
comments
you.
on engineers? You're done good, awesome. Mr. Ngugi, now 1 minute, literally 1 minute. For 55, I'll mute you. My apologies. I won't, but just try and cover what you can.
Thank you, Mercy. To the first question, ODR, the working group unfortunately had to suspend discussions on the ODR platform arbitration for good reason, to give time for the reform of the ISDS working group. Resources are allocated variously in the UN structure, and so it was felt that that was more urgent. However, should this working group resume its sessions and continue to advance its work, I think, in fact, this is where the young practitioner has an edge over my brother Mohammed. We are in that space. ODR is not just merely having hearings online. It's basically a completely set area of dispute resolution. And I think the young practitioner is best suited. This is really their area. That is the future. We are engaging in transactions online. We foresee disputes being able to be structured online. And that's the kind of area where ODR is going to go. So who is to watch out for this space? Not Prof. Mohammed, unfortunately, but the young practitioner who is looking to the future. On the second question, in terms of requirements, fellow or not fellow, that really isn't one of the requirements. It could add to the consideration of one being empaneled on the arbitrator or mediator panel, but there's a whole list of considerations, some of which has been highlighted by Prof. Mohammed. We have a standard. That standard had academic requirements, has experience requirements, and experience here is not just sitting as an arbitrator, experience in terms of training others, mentoring others. So there's a whole mix and match that builds into considering who gets into or will not enter into that list. Allow me to just say something about this academic qualification discussion. I think inevitably facing the future, the reality is that there will be a standard for sifting who qualifies, who can advance. That may not necessarily require that you have attended certain schools, but how are you going to interact with the global market without having been exposed to the very same standards that apply elsewhere? I think what we are moving towards is not insisting on a lesser standard. In fact, what we should be looking for is that greater standard that equates everyone. It's not being treated differently, but it's proven that we can also do it better than it is being done out there. The good thing is that universities, even on the continent, have picked up this. I could pick up Nairobi, the Strathmore University, offering the same level of professional qualification. They did very well in the JSUP moot competition. So it is showing that talent is here. So if it's a question of costs, we perhaps in the next 10 or so years will not have to be going to the so-called 5 top, or in fact, universities here will be offering courses which will now be in that 5 top layer. So rather than say we shouldn't require, we should encourage people to gain this experience and academic qualifications and offer them here. As a center, we have said, we have acknowledged, we will not just merely be the traditional center that administers cases. We will enter into that space, influence universities to offer these courses, influence national policy in terms of training legal practitioners and even others in other fields, so that they can see the value of not just focusing on domestic jurisdiction qualification, but growing into these other spaces, which have hitherto hindered us from.
I will have to stop you there because we just have 2 minutes, so I'll quickly wrap. First of all, thank you so much to all the attendees. You are very active and you've answered all your questions. There's only one person who was asking Dr. Mohammed his challenge when he started out, but we have a conference. I think he can answer you that question later in the chat room when we go to the next session. I also wish to thank the organizers for this opportunity. It was good to be in conversation also with the speakers whom I enjoy. I know them, they are all my friends. and I enjoy being on the same panel with them, and I also learned something new. Now, each speaker gave me a parting shot that I will wrap quickly, and then after this, let's all meet in panel 3. We're still willing to engage you further personally in one-on-one networking, or even just or in general chats. That is why we like this platform that the organizers have given us. Dr. Mohammed's parting shots when we had our pre-session was, it doesn't matter where you practice, what counts is what you do. Mr. Ngugi said, there are many avenues to getting where you want, just take the one closest to you first. Leah Njoroge, we need to break out of the subconscious or my English is going, inconspicuous shell as African practitioners. And lastly, but not least, Folake, hard work, patience, and honing your hard skills are the bare minimum requirements to make it in arbitration. With that, I'll stop this broadcast. Let's meet on the other side. My gratitude and have a lovely evening. See you more of you in the next 2 days. Bye.
Thank you all. Thank you.